Well, this was one hell of a week. From getting sick from the flu and simultaneously trying to avoid the largest wildfires in LA history. I'm Nikhil with Shelf Esteem, and this is the week ending January 13th, 2025. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf Esteem. I'm a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Material Season 3, and the newly released psychological horror film, Dead Whisper. So please excuse the scratchy voice. I'm still kind of recovering from this flu that's kind of taken us out. In part because, as I mentioned, we, narrowly escaped the LA wildfires that were creeping up on our apartment from several different sides last Thursday, and are now staying with my wife's family in Las Vegas, which has been really nice because, the air quality has been terrible there. Luckily, our apartment is okay for now, but the winds remain high, and the threat for more fires to happen or fires to spread continues through Wednesday. So we got one more day, fingers crossed, everything's okay. But, I had to leave my book collection behind. I had to leave so many things behind, and it's always scary to think about losing everything. So of course, we're some of the lucky ones because so many people were not so fortunate, and some of my friends sadly lost their homes and their entire livelihoods in the fire. So it's just been a harrowing experience for everybody. We're thankful to be okay. We have our cats, we have a couple of choice books, we have each other, and that's all that matters in this world. At the when it all comes down to it. So. Without further ado, though, let's get into some books because I got a chance to spend some of that time coughing in bed and also reading some good books. So let's start with the first book I read, which was The Fall. Now, I read this on my Kindle, which, as you can see, the cover is lovingly scratched by my cat Pepper. This is her making her mark on the book. Claiming it as her territory. But I read The Fall, the first novella of Ryan Cahill's The Bound and the Broken series. Now, I've been very interested in this book for quite some time because I'd heard about it from Mike's Book Reviews. So many different channels. I remember Philip Chase, I think, was doing a read-along along with some other booktubers. I think Mike is also involved in that as well. So I've heard great things about it. Dragon Rider fantasy has not really been my thing traditionally, but then I read A Song of Ice and Fire, and that really changed the game for me in terms of that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, it could be like this. That's kind of cool. I really like that. So I wanted to see how The Fall would check out because, I'm reading so many big books this month. I wanted to make sure I have space to contrast, because otherwise I don't want to get fatigued and then not be able to read all these beautiful books. And so I chose the novella to do as part of our read-along. We're reading through The Bound and the Broken series, and that's also on Discord and the FABLE app if you want to check those out. Free to join. Anyone can join. Please feel free to join. And it's pretty early in the month, so feel free to join us there. So I read it all in one sitting, so that gives you an idea of what I thought of it. It is a 100-page novella, thereabouts, and it starts you right in the middle of the action. I mean, this is like popcorn fantasy, action fantasy. If action fantasy is a genre, then this is that genre. And I'm here for it. I loved it. I thought the characters were great, and it was interesting because, the characters are only there for, certain characters are only there for a few pages at a time. So you're right in the middle of this disaster that's happening. I don't want to tell you anything about it because, it's so short. You should experience it for yourself and know as little about it as I do, because I think that was the best way to go. But you start right in the middle of this disaster that's unfolding, and you're kind of right on the ground floor of the action. And some of the characters are only there a few pages, yet he makes you feel for them somehow. And I cared about every single character that was on the page. So I'm excited to see where some of these characters, that survive to the next part of the series, I'm excited to see their presence and kind of see what world Ryan Cahill's trying to build here. But I thought this was a perfectly paced novella. It's one of the best novellas I've ever read, period. I thought it was really, really great. So that was the first book I read. I would probably give this 4.5 out of 5 stars. There's some contextual reference things that I know I'm going to really get more out of once I read more of the series. But I thought The Fall was a tremendous way to start it. I'm really glad because, you know, there are two different ways you could start the series, by the way, if you're interested. You could start with The Fall and then read on to book 1. Fall is the prequel novella. You could read Of Blood and Fire, the first book, and then read The Fall. You get more of a slow burn introduction into the world, but I kind of love that he just threw us in The Fall. So I'm glad I chose that route. But honestly, you could choose either one. I'm sure you'd be fine. So if you have actually chosen the other route, I would love to know. Please leave it in the comments and let me know what you think. So that was the first one that I completed. The second one is another read-along that we're doing on our channel. So I don't know if you all know, but for some of you who are new here, we're actually doing 4 read-alongs on the channel. One kind of traditional read-along, and then 3 soft read-alongs. So Bound and the Broken was soft read-along number 1. Soft read-along number 2 is the Matthew Corbett series by Robert McCammon. So I've read almost 300 pages of this book now. It's an 800-page novel, so quite massive. I love Robert McCammon. I think he has fast become one of my top 10 authors of all time, and I've only read like 4 of his books. But his books are just, he makes the absurd believable, if that makes sense. He has an ability to do that similar to how I feel Stephen King does it. And I just love his writing for that. I think, you know, I read Boy's Life was the first book I read, which is like a coming-of-age story. And then I read Swan Song, which is an apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic kind of horror fiction story. Both of those would be on the top 10 books of all time for me in any genre. So I was excited to pick up Matthew Corbett. Now this is different. It's a historical fiction based in the year 1699 during the, you know, kind of Salem witch trials, 7 years post Salem witch trials. But, you know, witch burnings and things like that were still quite commonplace in history. So you really get a good bird's eye view of what the culture was like at the time, the religious superstitions that were around at that time, that, you know, if somebody said something and they said they were ordained by God to say it, then people would believe them just because they didn't want to be wrong, you know, and just interesting things like that Robert McCammon explores. I gotta say, this is up there, in my opinion, with Boy's Life and Swan Song. Not quite the heights of those two, because those are otherworldly, but this is as close as you're going to get in his catalog, I get the feeling. I just get this feeling that this is right up there in that echelon. I am loving this so far. And it doesn't feel like a long book either. It really feels like he just kind of pulls you through the story, and you just kind of trust the process, you know? And his writing is accessible enough that it's very easy to do that. So Matthew Corbett's character is very interesting. The magistrate, Woodward, is interesting as well, and they're very contrasted. So Matthew Corbett works for this magistrate, and he's kind of coming up in the world as a clerk. But he has this astute mind that makes him be able to think about cases in a very observational manner. And he's able to do things that stand outside of the traditional conventions of where he lives. And so I found that really interesting, because it's kind of got a Sherlock Holmes thing going on a little bit. Yeah, I'm loving this book so far. I hope you get a chance to check it out. Really, really fantastic. Matthew Corbett Speaks the Nightbird is that first book, and I'm excited to continue on the train on this one. The third book I got to read, and I read a little bit less of this one only because it is a chew your food slowly and enjoy every moment kind of a book. And that is the third soft read along that we're reading, and it is book 1, The Wars of Light and Shadow series by Janny Wirtz, Curse of the Mistwraith. A book that is as good as this cover. Look at this cover. Janny Wirtz illustrated this herself. I just love looking at it. You know, I'll just pass by my bookshelf when I was at home, and I would just like look at the covers, and it's one of those that you could admire. You could judge the book by its cover. You could judge by the book by what's inside, and it's brilliant. And what I would akin this kind of book to is sip and savor, you know? It's like a fine cognac. It's not like chugging a beer or something. I don't know. I'm trying to give an analogy, but every word is deliberately placed. Lines of dialogue kind of cascade into each other, and it lives true to its name. You know, Wars of Light and Shadow, it's these two half-brothers, Lysair and Erthon. And I don't want to give too much away, but one is kind of known as represents the light, one represents the Master of Shadow. But it becomes very evident early on that not as all as it seems. And I get the feeling that Janny Wirtz's prose is so filled with nuance, her characters are so filled with kind of subtlety, and the way they approach each other, their relationships and everything, that we are in for a ride that kind of explores things that you don't really see in fantasy as much. It's not just about the grand battles. It's not just about, you know, a good versus evil kind of a thing. It's that not everything is as what it seems. And it's also about the intrigue. It's about the political intrigue. It's about biases. It's about so many different kind of themes that you don't see often explored in fantasy. So I'm about 120 pages into this book right now. I gotta say, I'm loving every word. I'm really loving this book. And I'm excited to read a little bit more of it. This is a book that I quickly realized I don't want to dilute with anything else. And I think it wouldn't do it justice to do so. So it is a book that will take over your life, as it seems like it's going to do mine. So I'm very excited about that. Jenny, thanks again so much for sending this to me. The final book that I've been reading is also on my Kindle, and it is the first book in our official channel read-along, and that is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. So I was very excited to come back to this because I think I mentioned to you all before, I had previously read Gardens of the Moon maybe 4 years ago during Mike's book reviews read-along. And I didn't really understand much. I was not well versed in fantasy. I was just getting back into reading. Was not the best combination for me, I think, to explore these characters. So I decided to pick it up again and see if I felt the same way. I'm about 70% of the way through this book now. And I gotta say, the characters really land for me in a way they didn't before. I feel like it doesn't really matter whose side which one is on. It doesn't even matter if the motivations aren't clear. There's a couple times where specific characters will do stuff that makes you feel like, wait, isn't that in direct contradiction to their alliances? Like, why would they do that? But you kind of understand that Steven Erikson has dropped you into a world without context, so you know that he's going to explain this in future books. And knowing this going in was really a boon for me, I think, because I think if I'd gone in trying to just understand everything, I would have gotten frustrated really quickly. So if you're reading Gardens of the Moon, you don't understand it, you know, just take it from me that I think this is part of the process, and I'm really understanding more by actually not forcing myself to understand. Does that make sense? You kind of see more of the broader picture, the zoomed out perspective. So I'm really loving this so far. I gotta say, this is easily way better than I remember it being, and I'm actually retaining more of it. I don't know if it's just the read-along we're doing, the discussions we're having on FABLE and Discord, but I really feel like I'm getting a lot more out of it. So that's the next book I'm reading. Sorry for the cut, you guys. So my phone was overheating on the windowsill there. I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. Thanks for bearing with me all. It's just been a crazy time, and I'm definitely without my setup and, you know, not filming in the most ideal location, of course. So what am I going to read this coming week? So pretty much continuing down the train of all those books. So I am definitely going to give precedence to Curse of the Mist Wraith because I really want to dive into this a little bit more. I'm going to probably juxtaposition it with some Matthew Corbett. And I think I'm going to put Malazan on the back burner so I could give a little bit more attention to Curse of the Mist Wraith because I really don't want them to compete with each other for my attention span. I want to enjoy both because they both are great for very different reasons, as I kind of described to you here. So let's talk a little bit about what happened on the channel. So I did release an update on the LA evacuation and kind of what Linda and I have been going through and the cats and everything in the wake of the fires, and I put that video up here. I also did belatedly get to put the tier list video ranking every book that I reviewed in 2024, read in 2024, and I'm posting that up here for you to check out as well. And that I filmed before, you know, everything started going down with the fires. But the channel schedule is I'm going to try to get one more video out on Friday. I'm not quite sure what that will be yet. I'm still trying to decide, but I'll keep you all posted, both in the community posts and of course on the Discord and stuff like that. And it's just a little energy dependent at the moment because, as you can tell, still recovering. It's harder to breathe right now. So, you know, trying my best to recover here as well. But I'm looking forward to getting another video out to you then. And then, of course, having the reading roundup on Monday as scheduled per our usual. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the, I guess, personal update and maybe music updates as well all in one go. So as I mentioned, we evacuated on Thursday. I had to take just some of my gear to Las Vegas where Linda's family is, and I bought a couple of things to kind of create a mobile rig out of this so that I could work from anywhere in the world conceivably. So that was really good at least. But then I promptly fell sick, both of us did, with the flu. And so we've just been basically bedridden until this morning. And today's the first day I feel like a human again, a little bit. So I wanted to make sure I could get this video done for you guys because I miss you guys. I miss being able to chat with you all more. And so I figured this is a great way to hear about what you've all been reading and kind of share what I've been reading as well. But on the music front, things have been going. I'm working on the last bit of The Conduit. The score is now all approved, and this is the short film proof of concept that I'm composing and producing on. So I'm just going to get all the stuff ready for delivery and start sending that out tomorrow. So that will be all wrapped. So I'm really excited about that. I'll be able to work a little bit on Philip Chase's Idan trilogy theme from here or wherever I end up in the next couple days. Still trying to figure out plans for that when we can get back to our apartment. But it looks like even once the fires subside, they're only 17% contained right now. The winds are still supposed to be high, and the fire's about 1.5 miles from our apartment at the moment. So fingers crossed everything is okay. But assuming everything is okay and the winds die down, say Thursday, Friday, we'll probably head over there to check on our apartment, but we might have to take off again because apparently the pollutants in the air are terrible, like asbestos, lead-based paints, all these old things that older structures had that are toxic and cancerous have now been released in the air because like 12,000 structures are burned in LA. So that presents a lot of hazard. They said that cyanide has been released into the air, just really awful stuff. Stuff that, you know, people say that the ones that were first responders during 9/11, they said they saw health issues and cancers and stuff appear like a couple years later. So really awful stuff, but we don't want to risk it. So we got to be careful with, you know, how long we stay there. We're going to assess the situation, I think, Friday, and then make a move, maybe go back here, or we go up to my parents in San Jose. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but we will figure it out. We'll keep you posted, of course. And really looking forward to getting back and being able to hold my books again and be able to be in my place with my rig all set up, you know, my microphone and just things that make the videos feel a little bit better for you guys. But at the very least, I'm happy we have our health, recovering health. And yeah, that's enough about us. I would love to know about you guys. Like, I always love this because it's a chance to create a dialogue and have a discussion with you all. Let me know in the comments, like, what you read this week. Anything cool happened to you this week? Like, I would love to live vicariously through you because this has been a hell of a week. Week 2 of the year, but I'm hoping that the coming weeks, it can only be upward from here, right? So with that, I'm Nikhil with Shelf Esteem. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel out, get it out to new viewers, because you know, I do this for you guys and I really love doing it, and I would love to find more people who enjoy this kind of content. So thank you so much for sharing and subscribing and watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.